Marcus Sterling stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker to life below him like stars fallen to earth. At 32 years old, he owned half the skyline he was looking at. 3 companies, 5 luxury properties, and a bank account that grew faster than he could spend it. Yet as he stared at his reflection in the darkening glass, all he saw was a man who felt nothing. His phone buzzed with another invitation to an exclusive party. Another night of champagne, shallow conversations, and women who saw dollar signs when they looked at him. Marcus swiped it away without responding. He was tired of that game, though he would never admit it to anyone, not even himself. The next morning changed everything. David Chen, his assistant of 5 years, knocked on his home office door with an unusual hesitancy. Marcus barely looked up from his laptop as David spoke about the new head housekeeper arriving that afternoon. He had gone through 7 housekeepers in the past year. They either quit because of his demanding nature or tried too hard to seduce him. Either way, they never lasted long. Elena Rodriguez arrived at exactly 2 o'clock, as scheduled. Marcus happened to be walking through the foyer when she entered, and something made him pause on the curved staircase. She was younger than he expected, maybe late 20s, with thick dark hair pulled back in a practical braid. But it was not her appearance that caught his attention. It was the way she moved, with quiet confidence and purpose, as if she knew exactly who she was and needed no one's approval. David made the introductions, but Elena's attention was already on the grand entrance hall, assessing the marble floors, the crystal chandelier, the antique furniture. When she finally turned to Marcus, she met his eyes directly and offered a firm handshake. Her palm was warm and slightly calloused from honest work. "Mr. Sterling, I'm here to maintain your home to the highest standard. You won't be disappointed," she said simply. No flirtation, no attempt to impress him with flattery. Just professional confidence. Marcus found himself slightly unbalanced by her directness. "I have high expectations," he replied coolly, falling back into his usual authoritative tone. "So do I," Elena responded, and there was something in her voice that suggested she wasn't just talking about housekeeping. Then she turned to David to discuss her schedule and responsibilities, effectively dismissing Marcus from the conversation. Over the following weeks, Marcus found himself increasingly fascinated by Elena. She transformed his house from a showplace into something that almost felt like a home. Fresh flowers appeared in unexpected places. Books were arranged by color and size. The scent of lemon and lavender replaced the sterile smell of expensive cleaning products. She worked efficiently, often humming old songs he didn't recognize, completely absorbed in her tasks. Marcus tried his usual tactics. He left a diamond tennis bracelet on her cleaning cart with a note saying it would look beautiful on her. She returned it within an hour with a polite note thanking him but declining. He offered her a substantial bonus for exceptional work. She smiled and said her salary was already fair. He suggested she might enjoy using his beach house for a weekend vacation. She thanked him, but said she preferred spending her free time with her family. Nothing worked. Elena remained polite, professional, and utterly immune to his wealth. It infuriated him and intrigued him in equal measure. He started making excuses to work from home, positioning himself where he could observe her. He told himself he was just ensuring she was doing her job properly, but he knew that was a lie. He began noticing small details. The way she treated his staff with genuine kindness, remembering their names and asking about their lives. How she carefully dusted his father's old photographs, taking extra time with them as if understanding they mattered. The peaceful expression on her face when she sat in the garden during her lunch break, reading thick paperback novels with worn covers. One day, he found her in his library, running her fingers gently along the spines of books he had never read. "You're welcome to borrow anything you'd like," he said from the doorway. Making her jump slightly, Elena turned, and for a moment, he thought he saw longing in her eyes as she looked at the thousands of books. "Thank you, Mr. Sterling, but I couldn't. These are valuable first editions. I get my books from the public library. They're just gathering dust here," Marcus heard himself say. "Books should be read," she smiled then, a real smile that transformed her face. "That's a lovely thought. Maybe someday when I feel comfortable enough, I'll take you up on that offer." Then she returned to her dusting, and the moment passed. The breaking point came on a warm Friday evening in late spring. Marcus was hosting a gathering of potential investors and business associates. The champagne flowed freely, and the conversation grew louder and more boisterous as the evening progressed. Marcus had closed a major deal that day, and he was feeling particularly invincible, surrounded by people who hung on his every word. As the crowd began to thin, Marcus noticed Elena finishing her evening duties in the dining room. She was removing the last of the champagne glasses, moving quietly and efficiently around the remaining guests. Marcus had been drinking steadily throughout the evening, and the alcohol combined with his inflated ego created a dangerous mixture of arrogance and entitlement. An idea formed in his mind, fueled by frustration at her constant rejection and emboldened by the audience around him. He wanted to prove something to himself, to her, to everyone watching. He wanted to show that ultimately he could have anything and anyone he wanted. Marcus walked over to Elena with the swagger of a man who had never been truly denied anything in his life. The room grew quieter as people sensed something was about to happen. He stood close to her, close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes, and he said in a voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "Elena, you've been playing hard to get for long enough. I want you to kiss me right now. Show me what I've been missing." The room fell completely silent. All eyes turned to them. Marcus expected embarrassment, maybe even compliance. What he got instead changed everything. Elena set down the tray she was holding with deliberate care. She looked at him, really looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes that made his chest tighten. It was not anger or fear or even disgust. It was pity, deep and genuine pity. When she spoke, her voice was calm and clear, cutting through the silence like a blade through silk. "Mr. Sterling, I feel sorry for you. You have more money than most people could dream of, but you don't have the first idea what it means to respect another person. You think everything can be bought, including human dignity. You think your wealth gives you the right to demand whatever you want from whoever you want. But you're wrong." She took a step back, creating distance between them. "I won't kiss you. Not because I'm playing games, but because a kiss should mean something. It should be freely given between two people who respect and care for each other. And right now, Mr. Sterling, you're not someone I respect. You're just my employer, someone who signs my paychecks. That's all." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. He heard someone gasp behind him. But Elena was not finished. "When you learn what it means to be a man worth respecting, maybe we can have this conversation again. Until then, I'll be here Monday morning to do my job professionally. And I would appreciate if you remembered to do yours the same way." She picked up her things, nodded politely to the stunned guests, and walked out of the room with her head held high. The silence that followed was crushing. Marcus stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. One by one, his guests made awkward excuses and left. Within 30 minutes, his house was empty except for him and the catering staff who hurried to clean up and disappear. Marcus found himself standing alone in his vast living room, surrounded by expensive furniture and priceless art, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his entire life. He walked to the bar and poured himself a drink, then another, but the alcohol could not wash away the shame burning in his chest. That night, sleep would not come. He lay in his king-sized bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Elena's words over and over. "I feel sorry for you." Not angry, not offended, not even hurt. Sorry. As if he were some pathetic creature worthy only of pity. And the worst part, the part that kept him awake until dawn, was the growing realization that she was absolutely right. Saturday morning arrived with harsh sunlight streaming through Marcus's bedroom windows, illuminating the emptiness of his life with painful clarity. He had not slept more than an hour, his mind churning with uncomfortable truths he had spent years avoiding. For the first time since inheriting his father's company, Marcus took a good hard look at the man he had become. He thought about his father, Richard Sterling, who had built his wealth through hard work and integrity. Richard had always treated people with respect regardless of their position or bank account. He remembered his father stopping to help their elderly gardener carry supplies, insisting on learning the names of every employee, attending their children's graduations and weddings. When had Marcus stopped following that example? When had he become this person who thought money could replace basic human decency? The weekend stretched endlessly before him. Usually, he would fill it with social obligations, business calls, or mindless entertainment. Instead, Marcus spent the time in painful introspection. He walked through his enormous house, really seeing it for the first time in years. Every room was perfectly decorated, but nothing felt personal or lived in. There were no family photos displayed, no comfortable reading nooks, no signs that a real person called this place home. It was a museum, cold and impressive, but utterly lifeless. Sunday evening, Marcus sat in his father's old study, a room he rarely entered. He pulled out albums of family photographs, images of happier times when his parents were still alive. In every picture, he saw his father's kind eyes, his mother's warm smile, the love that had filled their home. He found a letter his father had written him before he died, full of advice about using wealth responsibly and never losing sight of what truly mattered. Marcus had read it once at the funeral and tucked it away, too grief-stricken to absorb its meaning. Now, reading it again with older eyes, he felt tears streaming down his face. Monday morning came too quickly and too slowly. Marcus woke at dawn, anxiety churning in his stomach. Would Elena even show up? He had given her every reason to quit. He would not blame her if she never came back. But at exactly 8 o'clock, he heard the sound of keys in the service entrance, and his heart leaped. Elena arrived in her usual professional attire, her expression neutral and composed. She greeted David with her customary warmth, then saw Marcus standing in the hallway. Their eyes met for a brief moment before she nodded politely. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling. Elena, can we talk?" Marcus asked, his voice rougher than he intended. "Please." She paused, then set down her bag. "Of course." They went to his office, and Marcus closed the door behind them. He had rehearsed what he wanted to say a dozen times, but now, facing her calm, patient gaze, all his prepared words evaporated. "I'm sorry," he finally managed, "for Friday night, for putting you in that position, for treating you like you were something I could just take instead of someone deserving of respect. You were right about everything you said. I have been living my life like money could replace being a decent human being, and I'm ashamed of myself." Elena listened without interrupting, her expression softening slightly. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Sterling, I appreciate your apology, but words are easy. The real question is whether you're willing to change who you are, not to impress me or anyone else, but because it's the right thing to do." "I want to try," Marcus said simply. "I don't know if I can, but I want to try." She studied his face, seeming to weigh his sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Then I'll stay. But I need you to understand something. I'm here to do my job, nothing more. Whatever you think might happen between us, it won't. Not now, maybe not ever. Are we clear?" "Crystal clear," Marcus agreed, feeling both relieved and disappointed. Over the following weeks, Marcus began the slow, difficult work of becoming a better person. He started small, with things that should have been basic courtesy all along. He said please and thank you to everyone who worked for him. He learned the names of the security guards at his office building, the cleaning staff at his company, the baristas at his favorite coffee shop. He asked about their families and actually listened to their answers. He gave his employees real time off when they needed it. No questions asked. When his executive assistant David mentioned his daughter's school play conflicted with an important meeting, Marcus rescheduled the meeting without hesitation. The look of grateful surprise on David's face made him realize how rarely he had put people before profits. At home, Marcus stopped leaving expensive gifts for Elena. Instead, he left simple handwritten notes thanking her for specific things. "Thank you for the fresh flowers in my office. They brighten my mornings. I noticed you organized my father's old photographs. It means more than you know." The notes were never flowery or excessive, just genuine appreciation for her work. He started spending time in the parts of his house he had always ignored. The kitchen, where Elena often ate her lunch while reading. The garden, where she sometimes sat during breaks. He brought home simple flowers from the local farmer's market, daisies and sunflowers and zinnias, and left them in the kitchen with a note saying they were for anyone who wanted to enjoy them. Elena always arranged them beautifully in mismatched vases, and Marcus found himself smiling when he saw them. The atmosphere in his house slowly changed. His staff seemed more relaxed, more willing to smile and joke with each other. Laughter became a common sound in the halls. And Elena, while maintaining her professional distance, stopped looking at him with pity. Instead, he occasionally caught her watching him with something that might have been curiosity or perhaps cautious approval. One evening in early summer, Marcus came home to find Elena sitting in the garden, reading one of the books from his library. She had taken him up on his offer after all. He felt an absurd surge of happiness at this small sign of trust. "May I join you?" he asked, standing a respectful distance away. She looked up, considering, then nodded toward the bench beside her. "It's your garden." Marcus sat down, leaving space between them. They sat in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. Finally, he found the courage to speak. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said. About earning something genuine. I'm not sure I really know how to do that. I grew up with money. It was always the answer to every problem." Elena closed her book, marking her place with her finger. "Money isn't bad, Mr. Sterling, but it's not love or friendship or respect either. Those things can't be bought. They have to be built, piece by piece, through honesty and consistency and caring about other people's happiness as much as your own." "Please," Marcus said quietly. "Call me Marcus, at least when it's just us." She hesitated, then nodded. "All right, Marcus." They talked until the stars came out, really talked in a way Marcus had not talked to anyone in years. He told her about losing his parents, about the loneliness that had been eating away at him, about how he had tried to fill the void with things instead of connections. Elena told him about her close-knit family, her dreams of going back to school someday, her volunteer work at her church. This became their pattern. Most evenings, if Elena had time after finishing her work, they would meet in the garden or library and talk. Marcus learned that she loved classic literature, especially Jane Austen and the Bronte sisters. She told him about her younger sister, Sophia, who was in college studying to be a teacher. Elena sent home money every month to help with tuition, sacrificing her own dreams to support her sisters. Marcus found himself looking forward to these conversations more than anything else in his day. Elena challenged him intellectually, called him out when he said something thoughtless, and genuinely seemed interested in helping him become better. She never pulled her punches, but she was never cruel either. She saw potential in him that he had long since stopped seeing in himself. One evening, about 3 months after the incident at the party, Marcus worked up the courage to ask her on a real date. His hands were actually shaking as he spoke. "Elena, I know you said we would only have a professional relationship, but I was wondering if maybe you might consider having dinner with me sometime. Not here, somewhere else, as you know. Two people getting to know each other better." She was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus felt his heart sinking. Then she spoke gently. "Marcus, I appreciate that you've been working hard to change. I can see the difference in you, I really can. But I'm not ready for that yet. And I don't think you are either. You're still figuring out who you want to be. Let's not complicate that right now." She was right, of course. He was not ready. He was still learning how to be the kind of man who deserved someone like Elena. So, he accepted her answer with grace and continued working on himself. Marcus started volunteering at a community center in Elena's neighborhood. Not for publicity or tax breaks, but because she had mentioned they desperately needed help with their after-school program. He spent Saturday mornings tutoring kids in math and reading. The first few sessions were awkward. The kids saw through his expensive clothes to his discomfort and inexperience. But gradually, as he relaxed and stopped trying to impress anyone, things got easier. He discovered he actually enjoyed helping these kids, seeing their faces light up when they finally understood a concept. He also started reading the books Elena recommended, not just to have something to talk to her about, but because he genuinely wanted to understand what moved her. He read Pride and Prejudice and saw himself uncomfortably reflected in Mr. Darcy's initial arrogance. He read Jane Eyre and understood Elena's value of independence and self-respect. Each book opened his eyes a little more to perspectives he had never considered. 4 months after his first attempt, Marcus asked Elena out again. This time her answer was different. Yes, she said simply, and her smile made his heart soar. Their first date was at a small cafe she loved, where the furniture was mismatched. The tables were slightly wobbly, and the coffee came in chipped mugs. It was perfect. They talked for hours about books and family and dreams for the future. When Elena laughed at something he said, really laughed until tears formed in the corners of her eyes, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. It was pure, uncomplicated happiness. For their second date, Marcus picked out yellow roses himself at the farmer's market. He had noticed Elena always slowed down when they passed the yellow rose bush in his garden, that she smiled whenever she arranged them in vases. Her face lit up when she saw them. "Yellow roses are my favorite," she said softly. "How did you know?" "I pay attention," Marcus replied, and meant it. They walked through the park that evening, holding hands as the sun set. When Elena shivered in the cool breeze, Marcus gave her his jacket. These simple gestures felt more meaningful than all the expensive dates he had been on before. That night, at her door, Elena turned to him. "Marcus, I want you to know something. I see the man you're becoming and I really like him." Then she kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was everything he had never known he wanted, everything he definitely didn't deserve but somehow had been given anyway. Their relationship deepened slowly over the next 6 months. Marcus met Elena's family, including her mother Maria and sister Sophia. He was nervous they would see him as just another rich man, but they welcomed him warmly once they saw how he looked at Elena and how she looked at him. He learned the joy of crowded Sunday dinners, of helping with church fundraisers, of being valued for who he was rather than what he owned. Together, they started a scholarship fund for students from Elena's neighborhood. They supported local businesses and charities. Marcus discovered that using his wealth to make a real difference brought more satisfaction than any expensive purchase ever had. 1 year after Elena had walked away from his arrogant demand, Marcus proposed. He took her back to the garden where they had first really talked, where she had begun teaching him how to be human. He got down on one knee and told her everything she had given him. "Elena, you saved my life. You showed me what real love means. You taught me that the most precious things cannot be bought, only earned. You made me want to be the kind of man who deserves a woman like you." Through tears of joy, she said yes. Their wedding was perfect in every way that mattered. Both their worlds came together, celebrating not just their union, but the transformation that love had worked in both their lives. As they danced their first dance as husband and wife, Elena looked up at Marcus with those beautiful brown eyes that had first seen through his arrogance to the man he could become. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what? For becoming the man I knew you could be." "Thank you for seeing him when I couldn't," Marcus replied. Now, 3 years later, Marcus looked back on that night when he had demanded she kiss him and felt only gratitude. It had been the wake-up call he needed, the moment his real life began. Elena had not just changed his life, she had saved it, teaching him that love was not about taking or possessing or demanding, but about giving, cherishing, and choosing someone new every single day. The woman he thought he could command with his wealth had become the woman who commanded his heart with her love. And every day he was grateful that she had the strength to say no when he did not deserve a yes, because that made it possible for her to say yes when he finally did.